There is no guarantee for success, but there are ways to get closer to it when you do the right things. Who you surround yourself with is just as important as what you do. Finding the right people, the right classes, the right activities, and taking the right tests are all decisions that shape your future. Find out more today on Destination University with Dr. Cynthia Colon. Dr. Colon and her guests will give you the tips you need, whether you're a student, parent, or educator. Now, here is your host, Dr. Cynthia Colon.
You're listening to Destination University, a podcast for college-bound teens and the champions of those who are headed for college. If you are one of those, you are exactly where you're supposed to be. We're running a special series talking to high school seniors who have been admitted to college, and we're talking to Julia today. We're in part 2 of a 3-part series. So why are we doing a 3-part series with Julia? Because Julia is one of those unicorns this year who's been admitted to multiple schools that admit under 20% of the applicant pool. So we thought it was important that you understand who she is, what she did to make herself stand out, and where she's headed to college next year. Before we jump into part 2, let's have a few words from our sponsor, BigFuture.org. Our friends over at BigFuture.org want you to know that they are a free, mobile-friendly, personal guide and step-by-step college admission process. They're going to help you explore careers, plan for college, and also learn how to pay for college. And one of my favorite parts is that you can also explore scholarships. You can get matched right on BigFuture.org. You get matched by your background, your achievements, or even your career goals. So if you haven't already, be sure to head over to BigFuture.org and create your free account today. Okay, so let's get started. Hi again, Julia.
Hi, Dr. Colon.
All right. Okay, so now I'm gonna set the scene here for people who don't know why it's super important to stand out or have what we call a Coolness Project. And then I'm gonna let you just take over here. So for those of you who don't know, I used to work at Vassar College in the admission office. And when we would review applications, the very top of our sheet where we would take notes, there was a blank line. And if the applicant was the student body president, the editor-in-chief of the newspaper or the yearbook, a Girl Scout Gold Award winner or an Eagle Scout, or team captain of a major sport, or the 5th category was if they were like, curing cancer, doing research, nationally ranked in something like that. So those were the only 5 pieces that if an applicant had one of those in their application, that went at the very top of the sheet of notes, okay? So today, Julia is gonna share with us her Girl Scout Gold Award project. So we're gonna start there. So Julia, set the tone and let everyone know, what is a Girl Scout Gold Award? What are the qualifications? What's the rubric to even begin to have one of those?
Okay, so I'm sure all of you are familiar with scouting. You see us on street corners, you see us selling cookies, which, by the way, the Samoas are the best. I will not be taking criticism. But we use the money that we take from cookie selling or volunteering, stuff like that. We take that money and then we dedicate it towards 3 projects. So project tier 1, the most basic level, that's the bronze award. Now you get that when you're around 6th, 7th grade. Tier 2 is your silver award, which you get in your 8th grade to freshman year. And then your gold award can be done basically anytime throughout your high school career. And each of them has different hourly requirements, but you have to have done the first 2 in order to get to the 3rd. So it's a tier thing. So without having done the first 2, you can't do the 3rd. And the 3rd is like the big one. It's the one that everybody knows. It's the one that everybody who's in Girl Scouts is like, what was your Girl Scout Gold Award? That's the talking point whenever you meet a fellow Scout. So the thing with that one is you have to have at least 100 hours in order to complete your project. And it has to have it has to be structured well. It has to have an impact, right? It has to have a measurable impact. It has to have quantitative data, qualitative data, and you have to present your project twice. So you have to present the idea first, and then if it's a good idea and the council likes it, they'll approve it, and then you can get started. And then the second that start date, you have 6 months to finish it. So as soon as that clock starts, you gotta get it done. And then once it's finished, then you present it once again. And then if you have executed your goals, you have followed the plan, you've stuck with it, and that you finished it within the 6 months and it meets the hourly requirement, then you will get your Girl Scout Gold Award. And it's a huge deal. There's a ceremony, there's speakers. It's a great honor to receive it.
Well, yeah, it's a great honor, and this is me. I was not a Girl Scout myself, but I've worked with many students who, over the years, who were Girl Scouts and did their Gold Award. So let me just explain and inject that it's a big deal, because not every Girl Scout who started out as, brownies or daisies or whatever the chain is here, go on to do all 3 steps. So I imagine there's several that do the bronze, and then fewer that do the silver, and then even fewer that do the gold. So it's a small percentage of girls who can even list this as a part of their resume. So that's a very big deal. Okay, so walk us through, how did you choose, I think you have to have a problem that you're solving. So how did you choose the problem and the community that you were going to do? Tell us about the beginning steps of your project.
Right. So I knew that I was going to be doing my project because I've loved scouting and I really like giving back to my community. I love doing volunteer work. So the Gold Award is sort of a natural extension of the stuff that I was already doing. So when I was coming up with the ideas of what I was going to do, I really wanted to focus on my school, because that's a very easy and because I'm there all the time, right? I'm there after school, I'm there early in the mornings. So it would be very simple for me to sort of focus all of my efforts towards that, because I already was, right? So I was talking with my mom one evening. I was like, we need a project. We need to get an approval date, because again, it's a time sensitive issue. So once you have your project, you only have a certain number of months to finish it. And then if you don't finish it by that deadline, or if you don't finish it in March, then you can't go to the ceremony in April. You'll get the award, but it won't be presented to you in front of all the people, the council, the CEO, etc. So it was important to me that I have it done by March. So the clock was ticking. It was like September, and this needed to be done. So I was talking to my mom one evening, and I was like, Mom, we need a project. And she was like, I agree. So we were talking, thinking, and I have been very involved in my school's drama program. I was on costume crew in my first year, and then I eventually transitioned to the stage. I'm a performer, I'm an actor. And so I was like, how can we incorporate this interest of mine? Then we had the idea, my mom and I, because my mom's brilliant. She's my biggest supporter and I love her so much. Sorry, I had to throw that in. Love my mom. But we were talking about it, and then she and I both were like, oh, the costume closets, because I'm going to give you the backstory on this right now. But we were like, the costume closets, we can organize them. We could fix it, because it was awful. So in my freshman year, I did costume crew, as I mentioned earlier, and it was very difficult because the costumes had all been shoved into a shipping container. They were just stacked on everything. It was just a mess. There were spiders. At one point, an animal got into the facility and was living there for 6 months before anyone figured it out. It was terrible. So I thought, this needs to be fixed. And at the same time, my school was building a new performing arts building. And I thought, oh, this is a great sort of combined effort, right? Because they're building a new building, which will have storage space for the costumes. And they'll need someone to get it done. So I knew that the school would approve it, because they would need someone to do that. And then at the same time, I could be working on this project in order to help them with their new building. Right. So I came up with a game plan. So I knew that I would need to have measures for success. Right. So my measures were how many costumes I cataloged, as well as how many hours I spent, and how many of each item I had. right? So number of hats, number of etc. And then I also wanted it to be able to live on after you, because that's a very important part of the Gold Award. It has to continue once you are gone. So it has to be sustainable. And so I came up with sort of a list of things that would correspond within my own project. And then I emailed my principal. I was like, Mr. Beck, I have an idea. And then he was like, we can do a meeting. I was like, great. Thank you so much, sir. So then I met with him. I explained my idea. This was over Zoom, by the way. This was during COVID, which is why I thought I'll have plenty of time to do this, because I wasn't doing all of my other things, right? Because they had all been canceled. Theater was done. That was over. We weren't allowed to be performing. Choir, obviously, because of the air breathing issue, that wasn't happening. Swim wasn't happening. Tennis wasn't happening. So I was just bored out of my mind, because I'm a very high intensity person. I need to like be doing stuff all the time. So I was having a very rough time. And I think my Gold Award provided a very sort of a positive escape from everything that was happening, right? Because I had this goal that I was pushing towards.
Yeah, no, let me pause you here for a second, because you just said, so you were doing this was the year of COVID that you had this idea and you were about to present to your principal your idea, and I'll ask you to walk through that. But here's the thing, you know, many students, teenagers across the country, you know, just sort of kind of rolled up. And I mean, you know, it was a hard time. It was not easy to stay motivated, even though all the things were canceled. And so this is an example of someone who has said, you know, okay, what else can I do? How can I fill these hours? So what was it? I mean, you go to the principal, he says, okay, yes, he'll take a meeting. And how did you explain to him your idea? How did you roll that out in that conversation?
Well, he had other Girl Scouts before me at Alma, because we sort of, I don't know what it is about Alma students, but there are a lot of Girl Scouts at Bishop Amat. So he knew what the Gold Award was. So he already had that base of knowledge, which was really helpful, that I didn't have to explain to him what it was that I was aiming for, right? So then I just told him, you know, you have this problem, I have this solution, and I'll get it done in 6 months, and then it'll be over and we can move everything into the new building. And he was like, great. I was like, thank you, sir. This is happening. So then we get started. I'm loading costumes into, my mom and I were loading costumes into the car. We're driving the car home an hour away. So we're spending a lot of time shuttling stuff to and from Bishop Amat.
Now, to be clear to the audience, she proposed to photograph, catalog every piece of costume for the theater department at her school, which ended up being an inventory of how many pieces total?
2,000.
2,000 pieces. So I wanted to be clear. This is what we're talking about. So she had to pack her car with items, obviously not 2,000 at one time, and drive them home, and then tell the story of like what your then home,
yes,
your house looked like while you were doing this project.
Right. So after we get the costumes home, we just sort of put them in a central location. So we have one room of our house that's like stacked high. Then we have one room that's a photographing studio. And then we have one room that's an ironing station, because the way that my system worked is I would take a garment from that one room, photograph it first, and then I would put a little barcode on it, because that's how the system works. So you create an entry for it in an online database, which the software had already existed. So I just had to use my troops funds to buy this system, which was very helpful that it already existed and I didn't have to create it myself, because I don't have the expertise for that. So I would catalog it. I would come up with a name for it. So I would say, let's say it was like a polka dot dress. So I would be like, women's blue polka dot dress with white lace trim. And then I would have a small description of it that's like, it has pockets, it has rhinestones, whatever. And then there would be like fields. So I would hit like, this is a dress, this is blue, this is white. So that way, if the drama department needs a specific costume, they can just search it up in the database. So, and then you can also, the barcode that I mentioned earlier, you can scan that and check it out like a library book. So that way we always know what's checked out and what people still need to give back. So, yeah.
Oh my goodness. First of all, I have to ask you, what's the software?
It's called Costume Inventory Database. It's from this online company that she's like an entrepreneur. She works out of Sacramento, and she provides the software and the barcode tags to people who are doing projects like this. And
You have to research and find all of that information. Okay.
Yes.
So to be clear, and then like you categorize it and like the sizing, the color, the type of garment it was, etc. So first of all, this is super helpful. I can't imagine that there's not a single high school in the country that doesn't need you to come do it for them. And there was a huge problem, right? Everything's just everywhere. And then now they're moving to a new building that's being built. And this took, so 2,000 items. So I imagine each item took 5 minutes, maybe more.
3 to 5 on a good day.
3 to 5 on a good day.
Yeah, on a good day.
So easily accounted for your 100 hours, right?
Easily. I had like double plus some of hours. So,
and when would you work on this? Like, would this be something you got up early in the morning to do? Like sneak it in between? Like, when were you doing this?
Weekends and afternoons. Because I had my Zoom classes, which we only had 3 periods a day because that was just the way it worked out. And so I would be done. I had a lot more half days than I normally would have in a normal year because we have a lot of activity periods, right? If we have like a rally or like a speaker or something, we have an activity period added onto the day. So we have 4 periods. Because of COVID, we weren't doing that. So what had previously been an activity period, if it was a normal year, was now just a half day. So I was working during those days. I was working on the weekends mostly. I was working holidays, Christmas break, Easter vacation, etc. So.
Okay, so this was throughout your junior year,
yes.
Which is amazing. Okay, so that is an example of a Coolness project. Now, on top of that, we already established in episode 1 that Julia was also on trajectory for her, honors and AP classes, and she was an academic student. So school make no mistake, school came first, and her grades came first, and this was a way to leverage her time. So, this was community service hours. This was the Girl Scout Gold Award project. This was also incorporating something you heard her mention it just so slightly. So the Coolness Project, I share with my private clients especially, is a project that you can do something you love to do, something you just love to do, when it intersects with something you have to do. And what I mean by have to do, I don't literally mean like, oh, this is like going to be terrible. Like have to do meaning, she had to do her Girl Scout Gold Award. Okay, so she loves theater and she loves costuming, she loves all of that, and she had to get this other thing done. The other thing that could be a have to do would be something that intersects with a future passion, something you want to major in, a career path. So a Coolness project is something you love to do when it intersects with something you have to do. Okay, so again, we could go on and talk about all the things that you did. You were in theater, you're an actress, you did so many things as a leader on campus. But I want to pick up just a little bit before we do our 3rd episode, which is you're going to share with us your journey.
Big decision.
Your decision, your journey on how to get there, how you got to that decision. But Egyptology was a side passion, and I don't know that you did anything like formally with a club or anything, but this is something I picked up on when we were in essay camp, and it became like a little nugget, but it had a very much relevance to what you wanted to study. So tell the story of how you fell in love with Egyptology, which is a term that I don't know that I ever knew existed, obviously, but go ahead, share that story.
Well, my parents and my sister are, as I said, very academically inclined. So we spend a lot of weekends at museums. We spend a lot of weekends going to art galleries, libraries, etc. And so I remember being around maybe 7 or 8 and going to see this exhibit of Egyptian statuary and artwork at the California Science Center, which is a great resource for any of my Angelinos down here who are watching right now. Hi, guys. But it was really nice to sort of see a different culture, right? Because it's so different from the artwork, the statuary that we have now. And it was really sort of impressive to me that it had sort of stayed after all this time, right? That it wasn't just like a pile of dust somewhere. It was there, right? I was there when like they were there, if that makes sense. So I was seeing things that they saw, and it really sort of impressed upon me the fact that things do remain, right? Because I think in this time of turmoil and sort of struggle in society right now, it's really scary and it's really worrying for our future. But I feel like they had struggles back then, we have struggles right now. They ended up fine. They turned out great, right? Their stuff is still in museums, we're still learning about them. They mattered, right? And so this is all sort of a reflection back on what I was seeing then. Now as a more 7-year-old me wasn't having an existential crisis in that museum. That's a 17-year-old Julia development. But when I was little, I really loved it. And so my parents, being very supportive, as they always are, they were like, go to the library, get some resources. Here's some books that we bought from the museum gift shop. And then I was like, oh, I want to learn hieroglyphs because why not? So I'm like creating my like little flashcards.
Why not?
Why not? Why not? And so I'm like, I have time. So I'm like creating these flashcards. I'm like researching, I'm learning. And then I'm like, wait a second. They have like 20,000 different characters that all mean a different thing. I was so distressed. I was like, I'm never going to finish it. I'm never going to learn it. And I was like, so sad. But despite that, I was like, okay, maybe this isn't like a full-on like going all in thing. This is just sort of I like this, I want to learn more. I don't have to go all in, right? If I enjoy something, I can just sort of dabble, not necessarily like dive super deep into it, especially as a child, because I was little.
Absolutely. And again, to be clear, this is not one of your formal organizations or clubs, or you didn't have to do this for a grade, but you were just doing this sort of as a side thing that you kept growing. And your parents, if you're listening and watching,
support your kids.
Yeah, support. They were nurturing this sort of thing. Like, who thinks like, oh, I don't know what this is going to turn into, but they were nurturing your and giving you books and taking you to the library, things like that. Okay, this is the last thing I want for you to, because again, it kind of all, it all ties together in my perspective, but I think like an admission officer.
Yeah.
The last piece is the national parks. So let's just take a couple minutes to give respect is due. Julia told me how many national parks she's been to visit at some point in one of our conversations. And I nearly fell over. First of all, I didn't even know that there were that many that exist. So Julia, share with everyone, because I'm sure if you're like me listening, you think that there are, I don't know. And I mean, I've been to several national parks. I thought there were just the national parks that we all think of in the states that are literally national parks. Julia, shed some light for us. What constitutes a national park, and how many there are total, and how many you've gone to visit, and the stamps or something like that you got. So go ahead.
Okay, so this is your crash course on the national park system, which I think is one of our country's best resources for free education, right? Because membership is free for kids, and you can go and you can learn about sort of all these interesting things, right? So a national park, there are 4 different categories. So there's the national parks, national monuments, national historic sites, and then there's one more who I can't remember right now. It'll come back to me. But the national parks, those have to do with nature. So that's like your Yellowstone, your Yosemite, your Crater Lake. That's what most people think of when they think of national parks. That's what I normally get when I tell people about national parks. They're like, oh, you mean like Yellowstone? I'm like, yes, but there's more. And so the national monuments are things like the Lincoln Memorial, the Statue of Liberty. National historic sites are things where stuff happens. So that's like Gettysburg, that's a couple other Civil War battlefields, a couple Native American reservations are also national historic sites. There's also, it's a lot of houses I've found. So Edison's house, Edgar Allan Poe's house, Alexander Hamilton's house, those are national historic sites. And so there are also a whole bunch of state parks, which aren't technically a part of the national park system, but those are also more focused on nature, right? And those are also a very great resource. A ton of the states have them. There are some really nice ones in Oregon and Washington that have some really nice waterfalls. But yeah, I love nature. I love history. These things sort of just combine together in the national park system. And yeah, so
how many total are there? Do you know?
400.
400? 400.
400 total.
400. Okay. I've been to Crater Lake, Yellowstone, Yosemite.
Yeah.
Okay. And I just thought that was it. So tell everyone how many you've been to.
208.
208. And there's like a special something that you also do for like a star. What is that project called?
It's called the Junior Rangers. So this might sound very silly for a 17-year-old to be proud of, but I am extremely proud of it. I have a vest, I have a hat. It's a whole thing. So basically what the Junior Ranger badges are is you go to a national park, they give you a booklet, and depending on how old you are, you have to complete a certain number of activities. So I had the fortune of being like around 8 to 12 when this was all happening, which meant that I had to do like the intermediate level of activities. My sister, on the other hand, was 15 when this was all happening. So she had to do the whole booklet pretty much every single time. So I was there chilling with my like maybe 8 activities while she had her 12 going on. But yeah, so you complete a whole bunch of activities using information from the displays, right? So you can watch the park video, you answer questions related to that, you do crosswords, you do word stitches, you do scavenger hunts, and it's just a really fun way to sort of engage with the park itself. And even though I am now significantly older than I was, and the activities aren't maybe designed for me anymore, I still do them whenever I go to a national park. I'm like, I know I'm 17 and I know the ranger will look at me funny, but I need the Junior Ranger packet, please.
Okay, so to be clear,
stimulating.
Okay, so to be clear, it's called the Junior Ranger activity, and you can get them at any national park, first of all. Second of all, of the 208 that you visited, how many Junior Ranger, how many, I don't know, badges, how many of them did you complete those activities?
I have 215 because at some of them, they did double, right? So there was the one for the park, and then there was the one for like the Junior Ranger Archaeology, or the Junior Ranger Paleontology, or the Junior Ranger 100-year anniversary badge, which I have 2 of because I was like, this is an important thing. I need 2 of these for posterity.
Okay, so if you are sitting here watching or listening and your mind is being blown, you are not alone. I knew everything that Julia talked about today already before today, of course, but even listening to her repeat all the things that she's done, and we have only touched the surface of what she's done. Those are the major things that stood out for me in terms of knowing that those kinds of things would stand out. And obviously, the other reason is, as we prepare for her next episode, part 3, she took all of these things. Her love of history is evident and probably started at her visiting and doing the Junior Rangers program, and the Egyptology, obviously different things that led to her interest in folklore, things like that. And then also languages. Hieroglyphs, she said, she also speaks a little bit of Spanish. She speaks a little bit of Dutch. That's her background. So all these things led to making clear for her reader in the admission process who she is, what she loves, and what she's all about. So stay tuned for part 3. Okay, did I capture that pretty okay, Julia?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, awesome. All right, so hang tight. Let's just wrap up for now, and then we'll be back for part 3.
Part 3.
I'm telling you, it's like this, if this episode in any way fueled your confidence and or helped to build your dreams. And how could it not? If you didn't get good ideas from Julia's episode, I don't know what else to tell you. She's giving good golden nuggets. So there you go. Please share this episode with 3 people in the next 30 minutes. For those parents who are watching or listening, please join us in our Facebook group, Destination University with a Y-O-U. Because the destination is not university, the destination is you. And you can clearly see how Julia has found her destination. Okay, come back for part 3 of 3 with Julia, and she'll shed light as to all, not just the ones that we've shared with you where she's been admitted, but all of the colleges she's been admitted. And then she's going to take us on a whirlwind tour that she went with her father to make her final decision. So, all right, wave right now, Julia. And okay, wherever you are, may you have a happy and sunny day. Bye for now.
Thank you so much for listening this week to Destination University. Be sure to join Dr. Cynthia Colon again and get one step closer to your success.